My favourite quote from Battlestar Galactica is "May the Force be with you." Obviously, this is not real. Often people misattribute quotes or get them mixed up with different franchises. There's memes of Patrick Stewart as Gandalf saying "You're a wizard, Harry," and weird stuff like that are circulating on the internet. And the reason I bring that up is that there is an alleged quote by Albert Einstein that says, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." Now, there is a Inc. article that goes over why Einstein considered compound interest the most powerful force in the universe. And obviously this is super hyped up, but the article does go on to say, there's an often told story that Albert Einstein once was asked mankind's greatest invention, and he replied, "Compound interest." And it was the eighth wonder of the world. Now, there is debate whether if Einstein did say this or not, but if you take a look at it, it is pretty miraculous. And that's what we'll go over in this video. This particular article goes on and does another quote by Benjamin Franklin saying, "Money makes money, and the money that makes money makes money." If you're investing, you want your money to make more money. And there are a number of ways that you can increase your money. One way is putting it in a savings account, and that isn't a good idea. And let me show you with a basic spreadsheet that I created for illustrative purposes. Here's a quick spreadsheet that I put together that illustrates compounding growth based on an annual rate of return. This is a hypothetical situation if you were to save, say, $100 into your bank account. 0.1% or even the top side 1% is pretty standard in the US, but mainly if you don't consciously move it into a higher interest savings account, you're going to be getting, say, 0.1%. That's 0.1% a year. Now, this sheet, you can type in whatever amount of money that you want here. That isn't really the important thing. The real importance is the rate of return, the annual rate at which your money grows. If we take a look at this worksheet, you'll see that we've got years from 2021 down to 2055, which is about 35 years worth of investments. You can see after the first year, you get a measly $1.20 at the end of that year. And as you get to your end, where you're getting close to retirement, you'll have made $764.64 on your initial investment of $42,000. And essentially you're just getting 2% back on your original investment. Now, if you take a look at this chart, you'll see that the line is pretty linear. There's actually two lines here, the growth versus the amount of money that you invest in the account. And you'll see how this differentiates when you get a better rate of return. But if we look over the 35-year period, you see the orange line is your investment with the interest returned, and then the blue line is the amount of money that you put into the account. As you can see, there's not much difference between the two. And you may be asking, why am I even putting my money in the savings account? Maybe because you've got a very, 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 very low tolerance for risk. And it's maybe not even worth it at this point. Your money has only grown 2% over 35 years. Inflation is supposed to be around 2% a year, and you're not even beating it at this point. But when we put in a different rate of return, you'll see a stark difference. So when you invest in an index fund or in the stock market in a diverse portfolio, you're going to expect a 7 to 8% growth conservative over the year on average. So we take a look at the growth on this. We see that from your initial investment or be that $42,000, you end up with $223,000 plus dollars. If you take a look at the first 5 years, you start to see there being a more drastic difference between your initial investment, which is this blue line, and your investment with interest. And again, in this 5 year period, this first 5 years of doing this, you don't see much difference. You get about, what's this, $6,000 of initial investment will get you about $7,500. So you're making about $1,500 in your first 5 years of investment, which isn't too bad. But if you take a look at that chart, it's still almost linear at this point. You may be able to see a slight curve to it, but if you squint enough, it's almost flat. Now, when you take a look at the 35-year chart, you see a dramatic change. The money that makes money makes more money. And because of that, the growth is actually parabolic. It goes from being quite parallel in that first 5 years to lifting off and getting to this escape velocity. You're still only contributing $100 per month, but you can see it compounding over time and increasing. So after that first year, when you've earned 8%, that's in the pool of cash that's making 8% with your contributions. So you're doubling your investment plus 8%, and you're doing that on the third year, the 8% of the 8%, and then the fourth year, the 8% of the 8% of the 8% plus your contributions. And your contributions are linear and predictable, whereas it gets pretty good over time, going parabolic. Now, I wanted to show you this graph, which I find more amazing. It's hard to grasp this concept. So after the first year, look, you've got 108% of your original investment, because you've got your original investment, which is the 100, and then the 8% on top. But when does it become double the amount you've contributed to? So by around 2035, so that's about 14 years, you get about 195%, and then when you get to the year 2036, you have about 205% return. So you've contributed, your contributions have actually doubled because of this compounding interest. So it took you 14 years or 15 years to get to that double of your original contribution. Now, if you take a look at 2024, you've got 300%, so a tripling of your initial investment, and that's 9 years. So it's been reduced from that 15 years to get your first doubling. To get to your tripling, it took you another 9 years. Now, to quadruple your initial investment, it would take till 2050. So that's 6 years. So down from 15, 9, 6 years now. And then how long does it take for your investment to multiply by 5 times? So instead of looking at 2050, we'll look at 2054. You've added to your investment the amount that you've already added to your investment. So let's take a look at that again. At 2035 to 2036, you see that it's doubled. Over at 2044, it's tripled. 2050, it's quadrupled. And by 2055, it's multiplied by 5 times the amount. The moral of the story is the higher the rate of return you can make, the more compounding happens. So with that 8%, by investing in something like an index fund or something with a higher yield, you actually are putting your money to work, and then that money that makes money works harder. Now, obviously, investing in the stock market, it doesn't always go up, but on average, this is the kind of rate of return that you're talking about here. and that compounding over time multiplies your money a lot. Now, if you hold it in a savings account, it's less risky and there's less volatility, but you don't get the rate of return that's needed for wealth building. The main thing I want you to take away from this video is this graph here. When you contribute to your savings account or just put your money under a mattress, it's very linear and you're not doing much with your investments. Now, always with investments, there's a risk. If you keep it under your bed, your house could set on fire. It could go up in flames. If you have more than $250,000 in a bank account, it may not be insured for anything more than that. The FDIC insures up to bank accounts up to $250,000. The stocks that you invest in could go down to zero, like the whole world could implode. A thermonuclear bomb could just completely disrupt everything. So there's always risk associated with any type of investment or saving strategy. But human minds don't really think in parabolic terms. The bigger this percentage is here, the greater that parabolic curve is. If we went to 1% over that 35-year period, the initial investment of $42,000 would turn into just over $50,000. If you go to 2%, you see the growth increases to just over $60,000. And let's say the stock market just did so good and did 20% return over the next 35 years, which is highly unlikely. But as you can see, it dwarfs that initial investment that you've put in over this time. You're still at the 42,000, but you've got over $4 million with a rate of return of 20%. So that's where the average comes in. Some years it's great, sometimes it goes down, but on average you're looking at about an 8% return on a index fund following the stock market. So this parabolic curve here is the main principle to think about when you're investing. And when you structure your investments, these parabolic curves are what you're trying to look at and to try and formulate your way into early retirement or even just regular retirement. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Please leave a like if you thought that this was helpful. And please support me by using any of the links below to get free money, free Bitcoin, free stocks from the various different affiliate links below. Thank you.